Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Andrea Weckerly, and welcome to the Ready Living podcast, where each episode is designed to educate, inspire, and empower you to create the life you want. Thanks for joining us, and remember to subscribe for free on your favorite platform. My guest today is Lynn Catalano, a narcissistic abuse recovery coach whose mission is to help people recognize toxic patterns in every part of their lives, both the workplace or in their personal relationships, and support them in their recovery. She's the author of the book Wrecking Ball Relationships: How to Identify, Live With, or Leave the Narcissist in Your Life, and the creator of the just released Rebuilding After the Wrecking Ball 30-Day Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Journal, and co-host of the podcast The Narcissist Slayers. She has a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology from Boston University and a law degree from University of Buffalo Law School. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you, Andrea, for having me.
Let's start with the basics. You've described narcissists as emotionally handicapped, which resonates with my own experience. But for people new to this topic, let's define some terms. What exactly is narcissism, and how does it differ from narcissistic personality disorder? Is there a clear line, or are they on a spectrum?
I do describe narcissists as emotionally handicapped because they have what's known as arrested development. They never progressed past that 7, 8, 9-year-old emotional level. As a result of that, they have very low emotional intelligence. They very much do not care about people around them. I often describe them as thinking that they're the only people on the planet. Now, that being said, there are firm definitions of narcissistic personality disorder. The American Psychiatric Association, and through the DSM-5, has established 9 characteristics. They must meet 4 or 5 out of 9 in order to be considered narcissistic personality disorder. My narcissist was 9 out of 9. Narcissism is really about having some traits, and we all possess some form of narcissism in our healthy day-to-day life. And some of it can be healthy because it helps us with self-confidence and self-esteem. But when you meet those traits from the American Psychiatric Association, that's a different story. So one is like showing an occasional behavior as opposed to a continuous pattern of behavior. I recently wrote a blog about this. If you look at the two, narcissism is to NPD as sadness is to depression. Everyone experiences sadness, right? But depression is a diagnosable, persistent disorder. The same is true as narcissism to NPD. I have that in my book in chapter 2.
That's really good to know. We also hear the term narcissistic abuse a lot more these days, especially around romantic relationships and family dynamics.
In my story, my father was the narcissist in my life. I understand family dynamics on a very deep level. And I tell my clients, when you're in a relationship like this, you don't know the terminology. You don't know that you've suffered narcissistic abuse, right? People don't genuinely understand what this abuse is. And narcissistic abuse is definitely a form of emotional abuse. There's such comfort in reading or listening or watching someone else's story when it comes to this form of abuse, because it is so isolating and you do feel like you are the only person on the planet that has ever suffered this. And then all of a sudden you're discovering other people's experiences and you say, me too, I had that too. Their behavior is so consistent that it makes it very easy to spot in the next person. Because once you have one of these relationships, you don't want to have another one.
It sounds like narcissistic abuse can be incredibly subtle and covert as well. So, what are some of these red flags or behavioral patterns that people might miss, especially early on?
This is so telling because these are the things that do happen in a very subtle way. Narcissistic abuse makes you question your own reality.
It's crazy making, right?
Yes, makes you feel like you are going crazy. you do feel lost, you feel out of control. Narcissists love chaos and confusion, and so they bring that to you. The isolation from friends and family, the real loss of trust and the ability to trust anyone, including yourself. You feel disregarded, disrespected, and the worst parts is you're filled with shame and self-doubt. That can lead to anxiety and depression and all kinds of unexplained physical symptoms. When we talk about these red flags, some of these are similar to that APA list we talked about with the actual characteristics of narcissistic personality disorder. Some of them are my own. I put this list of 10 red flags together through my own experience, through coaching other people, through research, through understanding. A lot of times when I'm coaching someone one-on-one, they're going through the end of that relationship. They want to better themselves. They understand that they don't want to repeat this. So they want to learn who exactly that person is so that they can go on to the next chapter and avoid them completely. So I have coached people that were dating, and it's very interesting to me because they'll come back and they'll say to me, no red flags. First date, it was great. And then the next date, they come back to me and they're like, so there were some red flags. And I think, well, this is good because you're not so invested, and then you can move on to someone else. So number one, and this is by far, I think, the most telling trait about someone who suffers from narcissistic personality disorder, they lack empathy. They're unable. So what is empathy? Empathy allows us to walk a mile in someone else's shoes, right? It allows us to understand the emotions and really be tuned into what other people are feeling. This is what makes them emotionally handicapped.
Right.
Empathy is one of the biggest parts of emotional intelligence. My father, he literally would get angry at me if I was sick or injured or didn't feel good. It was upsetting to him, not because he cared, but because I was ruining his day. Number two, and I know you have seen this if you have had a relationship with a narcissist, they need to have control. It all goes back to power and control, like every time. They need to control you, the situation, everyone else, all of it. And when they don't have control, they throw a tantrum.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't like to be challenged. It interrupts their whole control. Don't question them. If you want peace, stay on their script. Their script is very much, oh, you're the best. What do you think of this? Don't challenge them at all. Don't ask them why they're doing something. And they also like to control you with financial dominance, or it's called coercive control, where they control all of your spending and any revenue you're generating. They also don't like to share information. They consider that a commodity, and so they will only tell you what they believe you need to know in order to keep that control. They love to withhold things, so it could be affection, it could be intimacy, it could be a whole laundry list of things. Number three, they lie all the time.
That's a big one. That's a huge one.
I know, and that one's hard. That one was really difficult for me because this is my parent. Here's the thing, they lie so much that they believe their own lie. I saw it in practice. He and I had this blowout fight. It literally is a chapter in my book because it was so unbelievable. Silent treatment for years afterwards. And I came back to him again and we had a conversation, and he literally told the same lie. And I said, we've covered this. That's not true. And he depended on that because that was his belief system. He believed in that false reality. Number four, they don't communicate well or sometimes at all. Again, this goes back to that emotionally handicapped, arrested development. They don't express their feelings or emotions at all. And so they expect you to know what they want and what they need, and they get upset when you can't read their mind. Number five, they don't like boundaries, and they certainly don't respect yours. They really have no respect for anyone but themselves. They push you or threaten you to do things that you don't want to because it's what they want or what they need at that moment. And they expect you to meet their needs regardless of your own feelings. Number six, they are never accountable for their actions. It's always somebody else's fault, never theirs. They always blame something or someone else.
I've definitely seen that one in action.
They like to deflect, deny, and lie. I can't tell you how much my father blamed the pandemic. that was a big thing, he could be like, it wasn't me. That's because of the pandemic. People who suffer from MPD cannot sincerely apologize. They're never going to take responsibility for their actions. And then they're known for their non-apology apology. They're going to apologize for something else. If you go to them and you say, when you said that last night at the restaurant, you really hurt me, they would apologize like, I should have never gone there.
It's always somebody else's fault. Or how about throwing a but in there?
Oh, yeah. That's the qualifier, right? So to say, yes, I'm sorry, but you made me do it. I'm sorry, you triggered me. I'm sorry, you know how upset I get when you do that. They never apologize for actually hurting you. These are things you don't notice though when you're in the thick of it, Number 7, they tend to behave one way towards some people and another to others. Narcissists are known to wear a mask in public. I grew up in a small town. He was very much known as this very public persona who liked to lead parades and very public events, and he was very charismatic. At first glance, you would think, oh, people must love him. I have since discovered, since I told my truth, people have been very willing to tell me a lot of things. He was very different when he came home with my mother and I. I mean, he was a big screamer. He was unbelievably critical of everything. I felt like I was always walking on eggshells, right? That hypervigilance of, oh, he's coming, he's home. Like you couldn't relax when he was in the house.
You were saying screaming at home. Is outbursts of anger sometimes connected to narcissism as well?
They don't have control over their own emotions because of that arrested development. Think about that 7-year-old on the playground that doesn't know how to express anger and so acts out and has a tantrum and yells and screams and throws things. That's the same person you're getting at 45 because they do not know how to regulate their own emotions. When you go to them and you say, you did this, you hurt me, you said this, you did this, whatever it is, they're going to have an outburst. Absolutely. Number 8, they like to employ these specific tactics to punish you. They have quite a toolbox, but I do believe that these 3 are their favorites. They love the silent treatment, gaslighting, and triangulation. I want your listeners to know the silent treatment is not, I'm just not going to call that person back. Silent treatment is where you try and have a conversation with someone and they just shut it down. Like a garage door coming down. They are not going to discuss that topic. And in order to not discuss the topic, I'm going to pretend you don't exist for the next day, week, month, year, whatever. My father was a professional at giving the silent treatment. He stopped talking to us 4 days into a 2-week vacation in what should have been paradise.
Oh, goodness.
And it was me, my husband, and my 2 daughters who were young. Gaslighting is where someone tells you that your perception of what happened, your recall of events, is incorrect. I had a client once whose husband was really abusive in a lot of ways. He had been in the military, and if it was snowing, there was this whole protocol that he had to go through to deal with whatever it was with his job. There they were standing in front of the bay window, and she said to him, oh, it started snowing. And he looked at her and he said, it isn't snowing. But like, what's happening here? Like, they can tell you whatever they want.
Yeah, you don't see what you see.
You do not. So that's gaslighting. Triangulation is an interesting one where they pit 2 people against one another. Sometimes as a parent, they could take 2 children and do that. In a romantic relationship, a lot of times they will put a friend in there. And what they do is they tell each person something different and they like let you battle it out. And then they come in as the problem solver, the savior. Number 9, this is definitely the trait most associated with narcissistic personality disorder. It is oxygen to them. They have this excessive need to be recognized, praised, envied, revered all the time. It's called narcissistic supply. If they don't get it, they go looking for it. My father would solicit it. Don't I look good? Isn't my hair great? But if you get more than them, if you somehow get more recognition or praise than them, be prepared for the punishment. And then 10, this is my big one. And I got to tell you, it was so difficult for me to come to terms with this personally. They are in the shallow end of the relationship. What you realize is that they don't know you at all, that they never ask you open-ended questions. With my father, it was like chocolate or vanilla, Chinese or Italian. Only their opinions and their thoughts are important. Yours are not.
There's a lack of curiosity about the other person.
One of the ways to build trust in a relationship is to ask more questions. Be curious, not judgmental. They don't do that ever. He never asked me any questions.
I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are going to do a check of their own relationships and say, well, wait a minute, is the friendship I have or my romantic partner, are they a narcissist or not? And hopefully the answer is no.
These toxic, unhealthy relationships really do take a toll on us.
You are a survivor of narcissistic abuse yourself. How did that experience shape your desire to want to help other victims?
Andrea, I must tell you, I do not think that if you went and surveyed a group of kindergartners about what they want to be when they grow up, that any of them would say a narcissistic abuse recovery coach.
Probably not. Probably not. Yeah.
And true for me too. But after I recognized what had occurred, and I don't know if it was my legal education or my coping mechanism, but I dove into the research of narcissistic personality disorder and I interviewed lots and lots of people who had experienced narcissistic abuse in different ways than I had. And that was like a huge turning point for me. While I was writing the book, nights and weekends, I was working in a position that was such a toxic workplace. And I was working for this CEO where I reported directly to the CEO, and he was literally my father in so many ways. And I said, what am I doing? I'm thinking of two quotes. One is Robert Frost, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And then I'm thinking of Yogi Berra, where he said, if you see a fork in the road, take it. I feel like life leads you to different destinations based on your choices. I recognized what I had experienced. I published my book and I said, if I can help one person recognize what's happening, I coach people in all those different positions. They have just left their narcissist and they really want to figure out what happened. How can I do better next time? How can I protect myself? Or they're in this relationship, and that's oftentimes with a parent. It's very difficult to walk away. You don't divorce a parent. How do I deal with this? Especially on holidays and family gatherings and special occasions. Like, how do I do this? And so I have helped so many people with those things. That has made such a difference to me. I was a professional fundraiser for more than 20 years for hospitals. That was a very gratifying position. This is more gratifying.
That really, really says a lot. How does narcissistic parenting affect a child growing up? These are formative years where the brain is developing, the personality is developing, the whole being is developing. And how might that show up in a survivor's adulthood if they haven't already received help?
If you have grown up with a narcissistic parent, there are a lot of different ways the trauma affects you later in life. However, if you have one parent who is emotionally available, you have a chance. I had my mother. My father was very active in politics. Politics is a really key place for people who suffer from narcissistic personality disorder. It feeds their ego in a lot of different ways.
Do tell.
I mean, we could just take a look and you just see it everywhere, right? What that did was he was out 6 nights a week. He traveled a lot. And as a result, I'm an only child. I was alone with my mother a lot. So that gave me this great foundation. She taught me about empathy and learning and communication and all these great things. If you have one parent who is emotionally available, you are more likely to be okay. There is a statistic out there that says that if you have a parent who is narcissistic, that you are more likely to look for that in a romantic partner. It's a really crazy thing that people who are empathetic, empaths, are drawn to narcissists. Empaths are listeners. We're going to tell people positive things about themselves. Narcissists love that kind of thing. It's part of their supply.
Narcissists draw in their romantic victims. What are some of the ways they do that? I've heard of love bombing.
Love bombing is part of the whole narcissistic abuse cycle. It's a circle. It goes around and around and around like the craziest carousel you've ever been on. There are 3 basic stages of the narcissistic abuse cycle. I'm going to do this in a very short manner. Oftentimes I ask people like where they are in the cycle. In the beginning, it's called the idealization stage. And that's really when the narcissist wants you to fall in love with them. So, what is love bombing? It's a definitive sign that you're in this stage. The narcissist showers you with affection and gifts and attention and encounters, putting you on a pedestal. I interviewed someone for my book and they said they'd never felt attention like that before. They felt like they were a princess.
A fantasy figure, and that should tell us something, right?
That should tell us a lot. But it's hard to see that, right? When you're getting love bombed, you're like, oh my gosh, this relationship is incredible. I said, I love chocolate chip ice cream, and they love chocolate chip ice cream. Everything is perfect. It's also known as a honeymoon phase. The goal of love bombing is to lower your defenses, get you to trust them, and create a very fast, intense connection. So then another part of this stage is called future faking. What's future faking? You're on your second date with this person and they start talking about, well, when we're married, we're going to live in a house like this and we're going to go here and we're going to have X number of kids and we're going to drive this car. They have no intention, by the way, of following through on any of those promises. The next stage is the devaluation stage. So that first one was idealization. Then we go to devaluation. So this is drip, drip, drip. It's like water torture of emotional abuse. It's a depreciation stage and it moves very slowly and very subtly. So all of a sudden, things that were great in that first stage, they loved everything about me. Now everything they're criticizing. They may even humiliate you in front of other people. They may embarrass you, ridicule you. This is a time when they're going to use gaslighting really to make you feel like you're going crazy. But the changes are so subtle, it's hard to notice them. They're going to make you feel insecure by bringing up ways you've hurt them. They're going to use projection as a defense and accuse you of things that you haven't done, exerting pressure on you to accept the projection. They're going to punish you. They're going to make you question your sanity. And then we're going to go to the discard stage, the third stage. So this is really when the narcissist has decided rather swiftly and brutally that you no longer serve their purpose. If you're a bit like me, you realize that your trust is completely broken. But here's the thing, don't forget it's a cycle. So sometimes the narcissist is going to say, I'm done with you. And sometimes we're going to loop back around in that horrific carousel and we're going to start the love bombing all over again. You feel this deep attachment to this person and you love them even though they have hurt you. And that is a trauma bond.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. What are they? How are they formed? And why are they so powerful, even when somebody knows their relationship is harmful?
So a trauma bond is really the connection between an abuser and their victim. It's an attachment the abused person feels for their abuser, specifically in a relationship with a cyclical pattern of abuse. The term wasn't even coined until 1997. Before then, the closest term we had to trauma bond was Stockholm Syndrome.
I remember that.
Stockholm Syndrome, is where you feel affection for your captor. So what are the signs and symptoms of a trauma bond? When I read these, I said, oh my God, my mother was trauma bonded, but she didn't know. Number one is the victim covers up or makes excuses to others for the abuser's behavior. Number two is the victim lies to family and friends about the abuse. Number three is the victim doesn't feel comfortable with or able to leave the situation. And number four is the victim thinks it's their fault. If anyone has these feelings, if you are trauma bonded in a relationship, please talk to someone. There are so many resources out there. There are so many videos out there to watch. Please do not allow this to continue. Why does this happen? Trauma bonding is a psychological response to abuse. It's a survival response. The person experiencing the abuse may develop sympathy for the abusive person, which becomes reinforced by those cycles of abuse, followed by remorse. It's like round and round again, like the wrecking ball's coming for us. We stay in these relationships with somebody that suffers from NPD because we're trauma bonded to them. Our relationships' highs and lows are rolled together with shame, guilt, and embarrassment, and I felt that to my core. All of these things make it more difficult to leave. You got to break the cycle. And that's why I created a course just for that, because it was really designed for people who can't financially commit to one-on-one coaching, but need to break that trauma bond.
We're going to share your information at the end of our podcast, but can you just let folks know right now, where can they find this course if they're interested in checking it out?
Absolutely. My website, lynncatalano.com. So Lynn, Catalano, Catalano.com, has everything there. I have 2 different courses and they are lower priced. It's a good way for you to get help immediately. There's a ton of resources there. You can sign up for some free things. My book is there as well as coaching opportunities.
It sounds like one of the things that narcissists also do is to isolate their victim.
The campaign that they're waging, the way I control you is I control who you talk to and when you talk to them and how you interact with other people. Narcissists do not want to shed light on their terrible, cruel behavior. And this person will do things to make it difficult for you. I once had a client whose adult daughter was in a narcissistic relationship. And as a parent, they came to me. They wanted to help her in some way. And this young woman had had a baby and she lived about an hour and a half from home. The father of the baby worked on weekends. And so she was alone all weekend with this infant. And the parents were saying, come home, come home. And she never did, because he would say things to her like, oh, I like to say goodnight to the baby, even if she's sleeping when I come home. Now, that's a manipulation. I don't want you to go spend time with your family, especially without me to control the narrative. So I'm going to tell you that I'm all you need. You can depend on me. The isolation works in a way that reinforces your dependence on this person, because you can't depend on other people. And they might say, they don't understand you the way I do. Or they might say, you can trust me, but you can't trust anyone else. During the narcissistic abuse cycle that we just talked about, they'll do different things to isolate you more. In that devaluation phase, the victim is alone and vulnerable and has little support. What kind of toll does isolation take on you? You lose your self-esteem. There's a lot of depression and anxiety. You have difficulty trusting other people. And then you may even have physical health manifestations. I had terrible gastrointestinal problems. I had skin issues. I had terrible insomnia.
Let's say somebody suspects that they're being abused and they're thinking, this might be happening to me.
So, what I tell people is, if you feel like you have experienced this type of devastation, if you've experienced this type of emotional abuse, this narcissistic abuse, first thing you need to do is talk to someone. It's the best first step to take. It's about acknowledging that you've suffered. It's about providing clarity as to what you've experienced and comfort that you're not alone. You need to do something for yourself. So whether that is find your support network, talk to a professional, talk to a coach, talk to a therapist, join a support group, talk to somebody. Don't keep it inside. The healing process is not fast. Healing from long-term trauma takes time. You can't beat yourself up about it. Really practice self-care too. And then please talk to someone familiar with narcissistic personality disorder.
Let's say it's not the person experiencing this themselves, but a good friend. They listen to this podcast and they're like, oh, wait a minute, this sounds like the situation my good friend is in or my colleague is in. How do they talk to this individual then and approach that topic sensitively and respectfully, hopefully with the idea that the person they're trying to reach out to will be open to what they have to say?
These are emotionally intelligent friends out there who want to help. First of all, listen, be present, just listen. You need to not express judgment to them. One of the coping strategies I talk about often, I talk about it in my book, is finding your beacon of light, right? A lighthouse guides ships, guides the way for vessels at sea. That's what a lighthouse does. In a toxic relationship, it's critical for you to find amazing, non-judgmental people. I had 3 friends in particular that would listen to me rant and complain and cry. It's so important for someone else to be a mirror for you. And then to just provide that support and say, listen, no matter what, I'm here for you.
People going through this trauma have these roller coaster emotions. So knowing that somebody else is going to be there for you, that is invaluable.
Yes. So be that person for somebody else.
You wrote a powerful blog post called 5 Things You Should Always Say No to When Dealing with a Narcissist. Can you walk us through those?
I think these are so important. Number one is, I need you to do this for me right now. They always want instant gratification. They don't want you to delay it. This is a perfect opportunity for you to say no. You need to prioritize what's happening in your life. And you need to stop putting their demands before your own well-being. Set the boundary. Your boundaries are your personal rules and limits. Number two, you owe me an apology, but I'll never apologize to you. They are the first ones to tell you what you've done to hurt them. We've discussed this. They cannot accept responsibility for their own actions. They're going to twist things around. This is a classic narcissistic tactic to keep you trapped in that guilt and self-doubt. So when you say no, you're protecting yourself. Don't fall into that trap of apologizing when you've done nothing wrong. Number three, you're overreacting. And this is a projection. If they feel cornered, if they're caught in a lie, then they're going to accuse you of overreacting, or you're too sensitive, or my favorite one, it's all a joke. Can't you take a joke? Saying no to this kind of gaslighting is a step towards reclaiming your power. Number four, I'll change. Just give me another chance.
You give them 1 chance, and then 2 chances, and 3 chances, and then years later, nothing has changed.
Correct. Think of it as a gun with bullets. How many bullets are you going to give them? When they get to that point where they're going to promise to change, they must sense that they are losing control over you. And they're going to make as many empty promises to change as possible. So why should you say no? You deserve consistency, trust, respect, not empty promises. Number five, you can't leave me. They often try and guilt you into staying in the relationship by making you feel responsible for their well-being, or by threatening to destroy your reputation, your career, or your relationship with others. They might even threaten that they're going to kill themselves if you leave them. They are trying to make it as difficult as possible. It's emotional blackmail at its worst, and it's crucial to recognize that you have the right to leave a toxic situation without feeling guilty or fearful. Saying no to these manipulative tactics, it's the first step in breaking that cycle of abuse and reclaiming your life.
June 1st is World Narcissistic Abuse Awareness Day. What's one thing you wish more people understood about narcissistic abuse?
You didn't create this. You didn't create this situation. You didn't ask for it, and you are not alone. Please know you did nothing to deserve this abuse. This is the type of thing you need to say to yourself again and again, but you can't make someone act abusive towards you. They do that all on their own.
Tell us again where people can learn more about your work.
LynnCatalano.com, LynnCatalano.com. My link tree is in my Instagram profile, has all my links as well, and that's at Wrecking Ball Relationships on Instagram. Please follow me. I'm on all social media platforms. I do post a lot of videos as well.
Great. Lynn, thank you so much for having taken the time today.
Thank you, Andrea.